So, Beijing Biden has decided to provide us with some light reading over on the whitehouse.gov. And this comes in a little memorandum titled Memorandum Condemning and Combating Racism, Xenophobia, and Intolerance Against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. Well, that sounds just peachy keen, doesn't it? Well, it would be if its thrust wasn't that we should not use language that connects the COOF, which is how I'm going to be referring to it, because I don't know if YouTube still has a bug up its ass about people referring to the virus that's been going around the world as its proper name. But anyway, this memorandum objects to referring to the COOF with language that connects the COOF to its country of origin, which of course is China. This virus originated in a lab in Wuhan, China, and the CCP decided that once it got out, that it should be the rest of the world's problem in addition to China's, and look where we are. So I'm going to be reading a little bit from this. I'm going to be reading from the first two paragraphs, and lest you think I am misleading you, you can read it. I'll provide it in the description below, and you can take a look at it at your leisure if that is how you really want to spend your time. But anyway, this memorandum reads as follows. Advancing inclusion and belonging for people of all races, national origins, and ethnicities is critical to guaranteeing the safety and security of the American people. During the COOF pandemic, inflammatory and xenophobic rhetoric has put Asian American and Pacific Islander persons, families, communities, and businesses at risk. Quick pause. I've never really understood the difference between Asian and Pacific Islander. I know Pacific Islander is a term often used to refer to the likes of Filipinos. I mean, the Philippines are a series of islands in the Pacific Ocean. I get that, but what about my people? What about the Japanese? Japan is a series of islands in the Pacific Ocean, but it's often referred to as one of the three East Asian countries. Well, I guess the Koreas are technically two countries. The federal government must recognize that it has played a role in furthering these xenophobic sentiments through the actions of political leaders. They're obviously referring to Donald Trump, including references to the pandemic by the geographic location of its origin. Well, if the shoe fits, asshole. Such statements have stoked unfounded fears and perpetuated stigma about Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and have contributed to increasing rates of bullying, harassment, and hate crimes against AAPI persons. These actions defied the best practices and guidelines of public health officials and have caused significant harm to AAPI families and communities that must be addressed. Now look, insofar as crimes happen against anybody for whatever reason, but especially out of hatred for one's immutable characteristics, I have no problem condemning that. I hate racism. I hate violence based on racism or bigotry of any kind. And anybody who commits such an evil act should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. They're obviously referring to Donald Trump in that second paragraph, and Trump used nicknames for the COOF, like I think China virus was one of them. Just because Donald Trump calls it the China virus, which is an apt name. It is a proper name for this thing because it is a virus that originated in China. It's accurate. It's fair to call it that. Just because Donald Trump calls it the China virus, now I'm not aware of any specific cases of hate crimes against Chinese people happening after this. If there were any, I'm against them, as I said. But if some idiot then goes and attacks a Chinese person out of ignorance, then look, that is not a result of Donald Trump calling it the China virus. Calling it the China virus is not incitement. It is not calling for violence against anybody of any nationality. It is simply a nickname for this virus because it came from China. And if some asshole decides to attack a Chinese person when they hear that name, look, that is the price of living in a free society. There are assholes who will do stupid things. Now, I will argue that it is important actually to use nicknames that really are specific to where this virus came from. China virus, kind of basic. Wuhan virus, that's specific to the area of China from which it came. Kung flu, that's kind of fun. But my personal favorite is CCP-19 because that directs responsibility toward the party that is responsible for this, the Chinese Communist Party. This whole mess is their fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. The reason it's important to continually hammer away at that this came from China and that the CCP is responsible is because the mainstream media has not done nearly enough of that. They're way too busy condemning Trump for every little thing. It's not Donald Trump's fault. He tried to curtail and did curtail travel from China. It turned out that what Donald Trump was doing was the smart move, but he got condemned for it at the time. But it's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not Republicans' fault at large, and it's not Democrats' fault either. This is the fault of the Chinese Communist Party. They had a virus that got out of a virology lab in Wuhan, and knowing that they had a problem on their hands, they decided to not tell the rest of the world about it and make it everyone else's problem. They curtailed travel from Wuhan to the rest of China, but travel from Wuhan to the rest of the world, that was allowed to continue unfettered. So that shows you just how malicious and evil the Chinese Communist Party is. I, for one, will certainly keep referring to this virus by its little pet names. And I have no disrespect for the Chinese people when I say that. I feel bad for them. I sympathize with them that they have to live under that dictatorial regime in Beijing. I hope one day they can be free. And I hope nothing bad happens to Taiwan, given what's going on around there now. That's about all I got for this video. I encourage everybody, if you are kind of mischievously inclined, don't stop calling it China virus. Don't stop calling it Wuhan virus just because the demented guy in the White House says that it's the wrong thing to do. What does he know? He's a corrupt influence peddler. He ain't one to tell us what's right and wrong. So that's all I got for this video. And fuck the CCP and fuck its virus.